Well, good morning, everyone. We are live again from the Prince of Wales School. It's wonderful to see you this morning. Thank you to everyone who's joining us live on Facebook and YouTube. I hope you're having a good morning. It's week 15, day one of week 15 in the virtual school, Monday the 22nd of June 2020. And we're very fortunate this morning to be joined by Steve. Good morning, Steve.
Morning, Mr Spracklen. Good morning, everybody.
How you doing today, Steve?
Yeah, good, thank you. Been eating me full of scratchings.
This is your third stint with us, isn't it, on virtual school? Is that right?
It is, yeah. But
Fantastic.
Talking about something different this time.
For those of you who may have missed your inputs today, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yep, I'm Steve Wallace, and my job title is Senior Archaeologist at Dorset Council. So I do all sorts of things. One of the things I'm involved with at the moment is the works at the Roman Townhouse in the grounds of County Hall.
And I think you're going to speak to us about that this morning. Is that right?
I am indeed, yeah.
Fantastic. I'm going to hand over to you, Steve.
Thank you. I think some of you folks came and visited the townhouse in January. And in case you want to know where we are, this is a map of Roman Dorchester. The things in red are mostly surviving Roman features like the walls. And the townhouse is in the grounds of County Hall. So it's near the top left-hand corner. It's a red blob just above County Hall, where Mr Spracklen is pointing at now. And it was found in the 1930s when County Hall was being built. But the thing to remember is it's in a corner of the Roman town within the defences of that town, which are big banks and ditches, which I'll tell you a bit about very shortly. Can I have the next slide, please, Mr Spracklen? There we are. That picture was taken in the 1930s when County Hall was just about to be built. And because it was in the Roman town, archaeologists from the County Museum did a big dig there because they knew there'd be Roman stuff that would be destroyed by County Hall being built. So they wanted to make a record of it. And they were very chuffed to find a really well-preserved Roman building. And that's that excavation happening now. And to prove that it happened in the 1930s, if you look closely, you can always look again later, I think, you'll see that the cars that are parked on the grass there are 1930s cars, and the people are in 1930s fashion. So that was what happened. County Council at the time thought, hang on a minute, this building's really rather nice. Better than we expected. We want to do something with it. So we won't build over that. We'll keep it so people can come and visit it. So
does look a bit like a scene from Downton Abbey. Some of these stuff.
It does, doesn't it? That lady on the right, the way she's posing, it's a very fashionable young lady, I think there. And you can just see something. There we are. That's where it looks like. Well, up till about last November, a few months before you visited, it was put on display. And the thing to realise is that the building is not Roman. The building was only built about 20 years ago to so that some of the mosaics in the building, in the original Roman building, could be put on display so people could see them and to protect them, but also to try and give an idea of what that original Roman building looked like. So what you see closer by, those little walls, are actually what really survived of the Roman building. And it was a really nice idea to put it on display, but there were all sorts of problems. One of the main ones being that it's in a dirty Great Hall at the back of County Hall. So it tended to get flooded. And if you can look in that picture, you see there's some very dark trees on the back at the left. They're conifers. They weren't much good for wildlife, but they basically shaded the site. People planted them thinking they looked nice. In fact, they didn't much more. They weren't very good for wildlife. And they were actually making things worse because they were dropping a lot of leaf litter and not helping the air to circulate and all sorts of problems like that. And they were things that, to be honest, we decided they had to go, but be replaced by something better. Next slide, please.
While we go on to the next slide, we've got a few people saying hello. We've got good morning from everyone in the Inspired Kingdom who are tuning in today. We've got hello, Mr Spracklen and Steve. Looking forward to the Roman Townhouse tour from year 4 in the Imagination Kingdom. That's Miss Johnson and Mrs Scott. The Hoffmans say hello to Jessica in the Secret Kingdom and Joshua in the Kingdom of Wonder. My usual office overlooks the Roman Townhouse. That's from Jackie. And hello from Emma, who says hi to Holly in the Secret Kingdom. My office looks out over here. There we go.
I'll just say hello to my colleague Emma again. So inside the building, that modern building I showed you, there's lots of stuff that's on display, like original Roman mosaics, and that's one that I think the class that visited in January could have just seen. It's a mosaic with a face in it. You might just be able to make out it's the bottom half of the face that survives. There's the chin with the mouth above it and sort of hair down the sides. It's quite a rare survival, but one of the good things about what the archaeologists found and what we can see is that it's possible to get a really good idea of what the building looked like in Roman times, and that's what the next slide, I hope, will show you. There we go. Very gaudy. People were showing off that they got mosaics, showing off how much money they got. They could paint the walls, and paint was expensive, so they made the most of it. And I think their paint schemes were horrible. Because they're just showing off that they can afford paint, so they're just sticking it on all over the place in all sorts of horrible colours. But that's what it was like, and we still do that sometimes. We like to show off when we've got money, don't we? And the next slide, please. But all sorts of other problems like that building, to try and protect the roof, some sort of mortar was put up there, and that was all falling off, so we had to shut the building, and you can just see there that's a broken chunk of mortar that's fallen off the roof onto one of the mosaics. So there was all sorts of problems with the buildings, and it just needed a good old-fashioned sorting out, updating, new ideas, new ways of looking at it, and sorting out some of those old problems.
Emma says hello to you, Steve, back.
Hello, mate.
Hi, Ursula in the Inspired and Orson in the Resilience Kingdoms. I hope you and your friends all have a wonderful day. We've got a message to Oscar. Hi to Oscar and his friends in the Secret Kingdom. My normal office looks out over the Roman townhouse too. Lots of people have their offices overlooking the Roman townhouse, Steve.
Yeah, and I hope they're seeing it better now as well, because the work that's going on. So this is a bit complicated, folks, but bear with me. This is an attempt to show what we're trying to do to make it easier to get in. One of the problems is that people had to either go through the car park of County Hall, which was dangerous because there was cars around, or go through the path that goes all the way around the outside, which is a long way. So what we've done, that's it, just near the pointer. We're putting in a new entrance through the walls. That's it, exactly the spot. Thank you, Mr Spracklen. Not quite as easy as it might look, but a new entrance there, and then the path will go up from there. That's it, along across the car park. So we're going to lose some car parking spaces, and then up from there again. That's it, and then a new path all the way around the back, that brown thing, linking up to the existing path, and then all sorts of works inside. But what I want to tell you about at the moment mostly is what's been going on with that path and the coffin that some of you folks saw as well. So let's go on to the next one, please. First of all, those trees. Now, when some of you folks came along in January, those trees had already come down. But that's not an easy job, because the last thing you want is to cut down a tree and have it fall on the Roman townhouse. So the work was done by some specialist tree workers that worked for Dorset Council, very carefully and very well done, and they would take them down in bits and make sure that the bits fell in completely the opposite direction from the townhouse. And that was all done very successfully in November. So you would have seen it in January without that. When you came in January as well, or if you've been before, you may remember coming past some interpretation boards, which are just at the bottom of that picture behind some trees. You might just be able to make them out. But because we were going to lose some car parking spaces, that's it, thank you, Mr Spracklen. They're going to lose some car parking spaces for the new entrance. We had to find someone else to put some new car parking spaces, and that building, which some of you might remember, was of no use to anybody. It was old and dilapidated, so that is it being demolished. I took that picture out of the window of County Hall, probably near some of my colleagues' offices. So that's been very carefully demolished, so you don't just whack into it. You want to make sure, yes, someone else saw that happening. So we watched them demolish the old garage, and that's it in progress. Big machine taking the bits down carefully, and that's what it looks like now. So that's gone. So that bit's finished. That's the new car parking area. The next one, please. Now, that entrance I told you, that wasn't quite so simple. This was, well, County Hall was built in a place called Colleton Park. The grounds of a big house called Colleton House. There was a wall down there, and there used to be an entrance that used to go in where we want to reopen or put our new entrance. So we thought, well, we'll just open that then. And you can perhaps get the idea there. There are the two taller bits of stone. Those are called piers, are on either side of the old gateway, and people have put brick and probably stone in there as well. We think about 50, 60 years ago, when County Hall was in use, to block that up. They didn't need it anymore. And so we thought that'd be quite easy. Actually, get the archaeologists who are going to do some work here. They could take it apart because they know how to do it carefully. So they could just knock it through with a nice sledgehammer. So they had a go. And after a day, they got about as far as you can see in the next slide. Not very far, because what we found is that right in the middle of that, the people who blocked it up had put brick on one side, stone on the other, and poured some horribly thick concrete in the middle. So they had to get some specialist equipment in to bash through that and do it very carefully. And then the next slide will show that open more. So you can see now that gateway is starting to open. There's only a bit of the brick near the bottom. But also those two people working there are archaeologists, because the level outside of the ground is lower than the inside County Hall. So we had to put a ramp in so that it would be easier for people to get into the site. But that was actually going through the Roman defences, the bank of part of those Roman defences. So archaeologists were digging carefully through that so they could record anything that was found. And there they are digging carefully. The side of their trench that you can't quite see, which is the bit that's sort of facing us, is in the next picture, please, Mr. Spracklen. There we go. If you can see that. That's that face of that trench. The gateway is just off to the right, just outside the picture. And there's all sorts of muck that's been put there, but that very brown layer, sort of, yeah, I say brown, quite smooth. That's it, thank you. That, we think, is the part of the original Roman rampart. So when people walk into the site, when it's open fully, they will be walking through the Roman walls, the Roman defences. And the next one, please. And that's the Roman townhouse a few weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. As you can see, the trees on the left, well, you can't see any trees on the left other than the ones further back because those conifers have all gone. But there are people working on the new access path that's going around the north side of the site that I showed you on the map before. And that's all soil that's being built up by machine. And the next one, please. I remember showing you the coffin. That's the Roman coffin that came from another place, Poundbury Industrial Estate, that was put there about 50 years ago. Nice idea to have it there, but really it's the wrong place. So I think I've told you folks who came to site that we were going to try and move it. Now that ain't easy. So what we had to do was get some specialists in who knew about these sorts of things to lift it. So these next couple of pictures show that being moved. That's how you do it. First of all, they're getting that's starting to move the bigger chunk of coffin, the main base. The blue things you see with the bits of wood sticking up have been put there to give the thing a bit more strength, to try and hold it together to make sure it didn't fall apart when it was moved. It was raised slightly onto blocks, and then it was lifted by that forklift truck and moved to that new position. So if you could just go back a bit, could you please, Mr. Spracklen? It's time just to go back one. Yeah, you might just be able to see the forklift truck. If you look under the coffin being lifted, you might just be able to see two little spars, two little bits of metal. That's the end of the forklift. So that's lifting it up and then moving it to the position that you see in the next slide. There we go, moving it up to the top. And when that was taken, the main block, the bottom of the coffin is already in place, and the lid was already in 2 pieces. So that's the second of those 2 pieces being moved. And if we then go on to, I think it's the last slide, please, Mr. Spracklen, you might just be able to see it. There's a chap on a steamroller flattening out the new path, because since I took that other picture, more of that path's been constructed, and you put down a lot of earth to do that, but to make a proper surface, you've just got to put gravel on and then flatten it out. And as Mr. Spracklen has been pointing out, you can just see the new position of the coffin there. So hopefully, not too distant future, you'll be able to go and visit the site and see what we've been up to and see that coffin in its new place.
Fantastic. Thank you, Steve, for telling us about all those updates at the Roman Townhouse. And I know that we'll definitely look forward to going back and seeing that and looking at some of those changes that have taken place. Got a few more people saying hello. We've got good morning from Mrs. Bernard, Mrs. Thomas, and the pupils in the Secret Kingdom. We have a Secret Kingdom now, Steve.
Okay, I won't tell anybody about you lot then.
They're in the upstairs part of our school because not everyone knows that we've got an upstairs. So they're in the upstairs kingdom. I've let their secret away now, haven't I? But there we go. And lots of other people saying hello as well. So it's wonderful to see. And now, if anyone would like to ask Steve a question, we have got a couple of minutes. If you have any questions about the Roman Townhouse or about anything else connected with that. Steve, obviously, the Roman Townhouse is a significant part of our history here in Dorchester.
Yes.
And that presumably that's why all of this effort's being put in to make sure we keep it safe for generations to come, because we have a role to play in preserving history. Do you feel?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. And what this work is also about is making it safe for the future as well, so that we don't have to do this sort of work again for, well, maybe 20 years or so. So making it easier to look after. And I'm just telling you things at the moment that are visible, that you can see happening, but there's lots of other things as well. So there'll be lots going on inside that cover building, like new lighting and so forth. It'll be easy to look after. And we've also appointed someone, a company, to do the interpretation on the site, which is working out how best to help people to see around the site by where we put maybe interpretation boards and other ways of interpreting it, so that it becomes a lot easier for people to understand the site as they come along to it.
Jackie says, for someone who has looked out on the townhouse for years, this has been really interesting.
Nice one, Jackie.
And Emma says, when are the works due to be complete? I look forward to seeing it when we can go back to the office.
Good question. I think this sort of phase of work won't be too much longer, but then some of the interpretation work is going to take, well back into the year. So there'll be, I think this early phase is coming on nicely. In fact, I haven't been there for a couple of weeks. It may be much better, gone much further, but there'll be other things going on for some time as yet. And you'll still be able to visit the site.
Who is responsible for the site, Steve? Is it Dorset Council?
Yes, it's online that belongs to Dorset Council, and the council is responsible.
Okay, fantastic. And I think I saw a heritage lottery board somewhere. Is there some funding that's come from other sources?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean, several other sources, but the main one is Heritage Lottery Fund, which has provided £250,000 for all this work.
Fantastic.
So we put in a bid for them, and we're very lucky to do that, because we hear there's a lot of other good people who've got very good sites and very good ideas. So you're quite fortunate to actually get that funding, and without that funding, this work wouldn't have happened.
Well, I know the children will certainly look forward to visiting the townhouse soon. Thank you so much again for your input. It's been a great assembly. We'll be back live at 4 o'clock for our next Today at PAL programme. Until then, have a wonderful day, enjoy the sunshine, and keep working hard. Thank you again, Steve.
My pleasure. See you, folks.